So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Zoey Gardner calling out Keir Starmer for copying the Tories playbook on asylum seekers.
The same, isn't it? It's more of the same that we heard from the last government, and frankly, that we've been hearing for decades. We've heard year on year an announcement here, a photo op with the Home Secretary from the UK and the French Interior Minister there sitting in front of a flag and signing a piece of paper and signing away more hundreds of millions of pounds to go on fences, to go on cameras, to go on drones. It's more of the same, and it doesn't work.
The Americans have the same problem with their border with Mexico, where you have people coming over consistently, right? People who want to seek asylum in America. All of the border walls they put up, all of the patrols, all of the fencing, all of the cages they put up, has that been a deterrent? Not really.
But what it does do, and what we've seen really clearly, is it is making the journeys more dangerous. Because if you look at 2022, 48,000 people crossed the channel in a small boat, and only about 7 people that we know of drowned. This year, we're looking at about 30,000 people making the crossing. And as you said in the beginning, 57 people at least have lost their lives. And the groups that are helping refugees there on the ground in northern France say there is a direct line between the increase in enforcement, police patrols, drone patrols, infrared cameras that we're paying so much for, and people drowning and dying.
And yet the terrible truth is that if we had safe and legal routes, if we had no patrols of any kind at all, then so many people would come here that the British electorate would not accept that.
That's nonsense, by the way, because we have safe and legal routes for people from Ukraine and people from Hong Kong. So that's really not true. And she debunks this, actually.
It would be a politically impossible position. So the government is in an awful bind, isn't it?
Well, what you're saying there is essentially, to boil it down, we need to let these people drown because that is our deterrent. That's what the argument is. But can I just point to a really successful thing that we did? We let an uncapped number of the 38 million Ukrainian citizens travel safely to the UK, uncapped, and immediately provide them with housing, welfare, integration and English language support services. And we were able to do that because we decided that that was the right thing to do. Now compare that, 200,000 people who came. 200,000 people is a lot. We were very generous, we helped people, and we did the right thing. Out of 38 million, an uncapped scheme, they're not all trying to come here. And the truth is that if we can help 200,000 Ukrainians, then we can also help 30,000 people who have crossed on a small boat to reach us safely. And it's just a decision that we have to make.
I guess the pushback would be that, climate change, wars across the Middle East, the Assad regime, the Taliban, there are so many reasons for people to try to get out of countries around the world that, you talk about the Ukrainian scheme, but we are potentially talking about many, many more people. And once you have a completely safe, completely legal route here, the numbers could be much, much higher than we're seeing at the moment.
It has to be done in cooperation with the rest of Europe because Europe is a country that is growing old. Without immigration, we are actually shrinking. We will not be able to pay for the pensions of my generation when I get older because we have not been having enough children to replace our working age population. Our welfare state and our way of life is under serious threat from the fact that our demographic need is so great for immigration. And as a continent of Europe, we are a very big continent and we are very capable of absorbing the people who desperately need to come to seek safety on our shores.
One of the other things that Alex, Political X, talks about is the fact that there's a brain drain in the UK as well, with a lot of people leaving. And this is another problem with kind of right wingers talking about how people in Britain aren't having enough kids. So like the idea that we can't immigration is unsustainable in this country, it's not really true.
So would you like to see some kind of pan-European agreement about how many people came to which part of Europe, which countries? Of course, we're not part of the EU, so it would have to be a pan agreement between the EU and the UK that would have quotas, as it were, of the number of people allowed in each year.
Quotas have been really contentious across the EU, and I think that it will be incredibly difficult to move a continent that, just like us and just like the United States, is really locked in at the moment to this race to the bottom on rhetoric and this race to the bottom on policy, where each country at the current time says, not here, you can go to my neighbour, I don't care. You can stay in the country before. Yeah, France says to Italy. Italy says to Tunisia. We say they should stay in France or they should go to Ireland. We don't care either way, as long as you're not here. That cycle is self-perpetuating, and every single country does it, and it leaves people with no solution. So we have to be the ones to break that cycle. It will take a lot of work, but the UK on its own is the sixth richest country in the world, is in desperate need of immigration, and could very easily have offered those 30,000 people who risked their lives in the Channel, plus those 57 who died, a safe way to reach us, and we could have benefited from having them here.
And do you really think that a political party which said we are going to open the gates, we're going to be much more generous, would ever get elected in this country?
So that's a straw man, because no one's talking about opening the gates. We're just talking about making more safe routes of entry.
I think that what won't work is what Keir Starmer's doing now. What doesn't work is when we don't have a single party that is offering an alternative. Nigel Farage tweeted today that Keir Starmer's been stealing his language, and he's absolutely right. And the only person who will benefit politically from Labour following what the Tories did, and the exact same mistake of demonising migrants and pouring money into failed systems that don't deter people but do kill people, the only person who will politically benefit from that is Nigel Farage. So some political party has to be brave enough to stand up and say, we're going to break with this. It hasn't been working. We've been doing the same thing for decades. It's the definition of insanity, and it's killing people. We're going to change. We're going to restructure our immigration system so that it reflects reality, which is that there are some people who desperately need to come here. And we will make that safe. We will regulate it so that we know that it's happening in an orderly fashion. And we will do our best to make sure that the benefits of that are shared throughout our society.
And one of the other things to add to what she's saying is, with the Farage point, is that he will benefit from this the most because of the fact that he will run on the next election saying, look, Labour couldn't stop the small boats, the Tories couldn't stop the small boats, I'm the only one who can stop the small boats. And then he'll kind of push to probably leave the ECHR, and amongst other things, like he'll be like, I'll get the Royal Navy in there to start sinking ships. Genuinely, this is what we all start seeing. And here there's another clip of Zoey Gardner talking about the who benefits from Starmer's policies.
You can arrest one smuggler, but as long as there is a refugee with no solution and a closed border, then there will be another smuggler who comes along to fulfill that service. And we all know that. Nobody seems to benefit from this situation. Nobody seems to benefit, certainly not refugees who have no safe way to come to the UK and are dying and drowning in the Channel, or risking their lives and having horrendous journeys to undertake at the hands of smugglers. And certainly the UK public don't benefit from this situation either, do we? We're very unhappy with seeing this chaos on our shores. So we have to ask ourselves, why has this continued for so long? Because this is the same policy that's been in place for decades, isn't it? Yep. Because somebody does benefit. And that is what we need to remember. This news today is a perfect illustration of it. Another £150 million to who? To the private surveillance firms that are selling us drones, fences, infrared cameras. They've been doing this for decades, and they are making an absolute killing. It was reported in the papers today that Graham King, who owns the company called Clear Springs that runs the asylum hotels, is on track to become a billionaire. There are people who do benefit from this.
She really is one of the best, probably the best in the space at explaining this stuff to people. Like, genuinely just insane levels of just analysis and delivery here. And, she talks about Andrew Marr trying to take the classic sensible position. But, the sensible position is safe routes of entry. And, you've got even the Home Office verdict, smash the gangs won't work, verdict from Home Office officials on Labour. Like, that's how bad it is. Even the Home Office are like, nah, this ain't going to work. What Labour are offering is more of what the Tories tried to do. The only difference is they're going to work with France a bit better, but they're going to make the crossings more dangerous because people are going to they're going to leave later in the night. But I think moreover that they're going to take the more dangerous routes that are less patrolled, because, you don't really patrol the routes that people don't really take. and so they're going to take more dangerous routes to come to this country, and they're going to lead to more channel deaths. And this will continue to be a story where Labour have failed to deal with the channel crossings, especially when there are deaths in the crossing. It becomes a much bigger story. You've got even like some right wingers on Talk TV talking about no one wants to see this. So what's the actual solution? And I think Zoey Gardner puts the solution out there incredibly well. So anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Obviously follow her on Twitter and YouTube and whatever, and follow me on Twitter and YouTube and whatever. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.